LWO1 WeatherNet. Liftoff conditions looking pretty good.
The STS is ready for launch.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
Ten, 9, 8,
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning. It's Thursday, March 11th, and you are looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 3:13 a.m. Eastern Time launch from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. My name is Jesse Anderson, a lead manufacturing engineer here at SpaceX, joining you from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. You're watching a live webcast for our 21st Starlink mission and our 7th launch of 2021. This is an exciting week for the Starlink teams as we're continuing our international expansion of service. If you've been following Starlink development, you know that we rolled out our beta service in the US initially, followed by Canada. This week, the team is launching our beta service in Germany and New Zealand and expanding our beta service in the UK. As a global satellite constellation, Starlink can deliver high-speed internet to places that previously had terrible service or no service at all. And because the satellites fly in a low orbit, the round-trip data time between the user and the satellite, which is also known as latency, is much lower than with satellites in geostationary orbit. This enables Starlink to deliver services like seamless video calls that are usually not possible on other satellite internet systems. We are currently T-minus 11 minutes from liftoff of our next batch of Starlink satellites. So with that, let's take a closer look at the rocket on your screen.
Hi, I'm Ian McCullough, a sourcing manager here at SpaceX. You're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 on the pad. Our two-stage launch vehicle stands about 70 meters tall, and when it is fully fueled, it'll hold just over 1 million pounds propellant that the vehicle will burn through in less than 3 minutes after liftoff. We prepped Falcon 9 in our hangar at the base of the pad. Upon completing final checkouts, Falcon 9 rolled out to the pad with the Starlink payload and went vertical Tuesday around 2:30 a.m. Eastern. The bottom two-thirds of the vehicle is the first stage. It previously flew 5 times before, having supported the launch of NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley to the International Space Station, an Anassist-2, CRS-21, Transporter-1, and a Starlink mission. Its objective is to accelerate the vehicle through Earth's atmosphere to space, and then to separate from the rest of the rocket. Once the first stage separates from the second stage, it will make its way back to Earth and target a landing on our drone ship, Just Read the Instructions. For reference, our drone ships are equivalent to the size of a football field. If successful, it will mark the 76th recovery of an orbital-class rocket. Above the first stage is the second stage, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine that ignites after the first stage separates. At full power, the Merlin vacuum engine operates with the greatest efficiency ever for an American-made hydrocarbon rocket engine. The second stage is what will carry our Starlink orbit satellites to orbit. At the top of the rocket, you'll also notice the large nose cone. This is called the fairing. The fairing houses the Starlink satellites and protects them until the vehicle is outside of the Earth's atmosphere, at which point the fairing separates to expose the satellites to space. Today, we will be using a flight-proven fairing, and we'll be attempting to recover each half again with our recovery ships Go Searcher and Go Navigator. Lastly, the truss structure you see there is the Transporter Erector, or TE. We use it to roll the rocket out to the pad, raise it to its vertical launch position. The TE also routes the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry umbilicals from the ground systems to the rocket and satellites until F9 goes on internal power and clears the pad. At liftoff, it will retract in order to clear the way for Falcon 9's ascent. At T-minus 8 minutes and 40 seconds, let's take a look at where we're progressing in the countdown.
The chief engineer held a technical poll at T-minus 1 hour, and the launch director held a propellant load and launch go-no-go poll at T-minus 38 minutes. Falcon 9 has been loading propellant since T-minus 35 minutes, and our fuel is a refined form of kerosene known as RP1. Our oxidizer is a super chilled liquid oxygen called LOX. Now we chill it well below the boiling point, which densifies the LOX so that we can load more into the boosters. We have also begun helium loading. The vehicle uses helium gas as a pressurant in the fuel and LOX tanks. As the Merlin engine pumps pull RP1 and locks out of the tanks, we fill the empty volume, known as the ullage, with helium headed by the engine. Heating the helium helps expand it to fill the tanks. To make sure engine startup goes well, we also perform what we call engine chill, and this will happen at T-minus 7 minutes. And this is where we flow a small amount of super chilled liquid oxygen into the Merlin engine turbo pumps. And we do this to avoid a thermal shock to the system when the full flow of super chilled liquid oxygen hits the prop system. Now the vehicle is looking healthy, and we are currently working no issues. The range is green for launch, and weather is also looking really good, 90% favorable for launch this morning. All systems continue to be go for liftoff at 3:13 a.m. Eastern Time. If for some reason we do not launch today, we do have a backup opportunity on Friday at 2:51 a.m. Eastern Time.
If you live in a major city like we do here in Los Angeles, chances are you have easy access to great internet and never really have to think about it. However, roughly half of the world's population, or 3.6 billion people, do not have access to internet. And at a time where more people are working from home and more students are participating in virtual learning, internet connectivity across the globe is more important than ever. To that end, the Starlink team is excited to expand our beta service internationally, adding 2 brand new countries and expanding into a third. Starlink Beta is now available for the first time in Germany. This week, we rolled out service into parts of Western Germany and will continue to expand in the coming weeks. The photo you're seeing here on the screen is the first installation in Germany. You can barely make out the Starlink on the rooftop there. It's pretty exciting to see Starlink hardware in Deutschland, and we're looking forward to seeing more pictures like this in the future. The team is also rolling out first-time service in New Zealand. Service will initially be focused in the South Island, but will continue to expand rapidly this year. And last but not least, the Starlink team expanded our existing coverage in the UK to include Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, North England, in addition to the existing coverage in the South. The image you're looking at here is from one of our first users in South Hams, Devon in the UK. They report up to 200 megabits per second at times, which is pretty exciting. During Starlink Beta, users can expect download speeds between 50 and 150 megabits per second, along with brief periods of no connectivity at all. As we launch more satellites, install more ground stations, and improve our networking software, data speed, latency, and uptime will improve dramatically. To learn more about Starlink, or to find out if service is available in your area, head on over to starlink.com.
We're currently at T-minus 5 minutes and 5 seconds, and Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. We're currently waiting for the transporter erector, the TE, to retract, and that's that white painted structure right behind the vehicle. What you're seeing on your screen is right behind that fairing payload. First, the TE clamps will start to open, and then the transporter erector will begin to retract away from the rocket slightly. And at T0, hydraulics will pull the TE further away from Falcon 9 as it lifts off. Now, the TE provides liquids, gases, electrical connections to the second stage, as well as air conditioning to the payload fairing. And what we'll see first is those clamps open up slowly. And once those clamps finish opening up, the TE will start to retract back.
Drop back, retract in progress.
And you heard that call out and can see the clamps moving. Looks like the clamps have completed opening, so that TE should start retracting back very slowly. And it's very, very slight, but you can see the TE just slightly leaning back away from Falcon 9. The first and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Super chilled liquid oxygen is our propellant oxidizer, and that's what's creating those white clouds that you're seeing on your screen around Falcon 9. And that's because the warm, humid ambient air causes the liquid oxygen to turn into gas. First stage should finish prop loading at T-minus 3 minutes in a few seconds here, and second stage will finish at T-minus 2 minutes. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown.
Stage 1, LOX load closed out.
And there's that call out for first stage LOX load complete. Just inside T-minus 2 seconds, we light the Merlin 1D engines. We use TTEB as our ignition fluid. And when it mixes with oxygen, it burns a green-colored flame. We then allow the fuel into the thrust chamber, and the engine comes up to full power for liftoff at T0. Now, the Starlink payload continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is still looking good for T0. And the range has cleared the surrounding ground, water, and airspace and are green for launch. LOX loading should be...
LOX load closed out.
There it is. Stage 2 LOX load is now complete. So now that LOX loading is complete, we will start to clear out the LOX line on the transporter erector. So you should see some venting here in a few seconds. And there you can see on your screen, as I mentioned, those white clouds is from the vent. That's from the venting from the LOX. Now, in just 20 seconds or so, Falcon 9 will go into startup, and Stage 1 and Stage 2 will begin to pressurize for launch.
Falcon 9's in startup.
There's that startup call out. Coming up is the final go from the launch director.
Stage 2 is pressing for flight.
Falcon 9 Starlink LDs go for launch.
And there is that call out that we are go for launch. So all systems are
30 seconds.
All systems are go for launch. Let's listen into the terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our stack of Starlink satellites into space.
Stage 1,
T-minus
press for
15
flight.
seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Stage 1 propulsion
Vehicle
on.
is pitching downrange.
T plus 40 seconds into flight, and Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying our stack of Starlink satellites to orbit. We're now throttling down our engines in preparation for max Q, which is maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is the largest structural load that the vehicle sees on ascent. We've got an awesome view of first stage of Falcon 9 there on your screen.
Max Q.
There's that call out that we've passed through max Q. Now, in about a minute, we'll have 3 events happening within seconds of each other. The first will be main engine cutoff, or what we call MECO, followed by stage separation and SES-1, or second engine start 1. Now, MECO is where we shut down all 9 of the M1D engines on the first stage to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation. And stage separation is where the first stage separates from the second stage.
Vehicle is following a nominal trajectory.
Good call outs there. First stage will then make its way back to Earth and attempt to land on our drone ship, Just Read the Instructions, while stage 2 continues its journey with the third event being second engine start 1. And that's where we light up that MVAC engine and it will propel the second stage with our Starlink satellites to orbit. Now we're just about 10 seconds or so away from those 3 events. That is MECO, stage separation, and SES-1.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
And there we just had MECO and stage separation. On your right-hand screen, you're looking at that MVAC engine on the second stage, confirming SES-1.
Propulsion nominal.
And a good call out that stage 2
Both
is
vehicles
nominal.
continue to follow nominal trajectories.
Both vehicles are nominal.
Separation confirmed.
And there you can see on your screen the fairing halves have been deployed. They are now making their way back to Earth. And as a reminder, we will be attempting to recover the fairing halves today with our recovery ships Go Searcher and Go Navigator.
All right, as stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, stage 1 will execute 2 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. The first is the entry burn, where 3 of the Merlin 1D engines will reignite, and this helps slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. The second burn is the landing burn, and this is a single engine burn that brings the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land on the drone ship. We're about T plus 4 minutes into flight, and if you're just catching up with us, we had a successful launch of Falcon 9 from Cape Canaveral, Space Launch Complex 40. If you're looking at a live view of the Falcon 9 Stage 2 as it delivers our Starlink payload to orbit. Stage 1 is cruising back to our drone ship, Just Read the Instructions, in the Atlantic Ocean. Now we'll continue to watch stage 2 here on a nominal ascent for a few minutes. As a reminder, the Merlins on the first stage are optimized for sea level, and these achieve around 190,000 pounds of thrust during ascent and descent. The MVAC engine is optimized for vacuum and achieves about 220,500 pounds of thrust on the single engine. The Starlink constellation is in low Earth orbit, or LEO, at around 550 kilometers. Now, most geostationary satellites are at 1,000 kilometers altitude, and these are the general satellites that we see in most other systems. When the satellites are farther from Earth, the round-trip data time between the user and the satellite, also known as latency, is much higher, resulting in poorer performance for activities like video calls and gaming. And we're about 30 seconds out here from entry burn. As a reminder, Falcon 9 is equipped with 4 hypersonic grid fins positioned near the top of the first stage on stage 1, using nothing but, that guide it back during its re-entry to the ground.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there we go, we have entry burn start.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Beautiful, and entry burn cutoff. Stage 1 is going to continue its descent to our drone ship. Just read the instructions. As Stage 1 continues to descend, it uses occasional bursts of nitrogen gas for attitude control, and sometimes you can see this, although in the darkest night we may not be able to. To land, the Falcon 9 first stage is also equipped with 4 landing legs made of state-of-the-art carbon fiber and aluminum honeycomb. These are placed symmetrically around the base of the rocket and deployed just prior to landing. After first stage landing, Stage 2 has a coast phase, then a short burn, and then another coast phase before deploying the satellites. We are about 30 seconds out from landing burn.
Stage 1 landing burn.
10 seconds out. We may see a video cut out here.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
All right, and there you can see we've landed first stage on our drone ship. Just read the instructions. This marks our 76th recovery of an orbital class rocket and the 6th recovery for this particular booster.
Seco.
And we've had second engine cut off 1.
Also signal stage 2 from the Cape as expected.
And we confirmed good orbit. All right, now stage 2 is going to coast for this orbit in the next 35 minutes or so. While that happens, take a look at this animation showcasing where we are in the coast phase. We'll see you back here in about T plus 45 minutes for a second stage relight.
Also signal Bermuda expected. Lost a signal different than expected. Acquisition of signal at Goonhilly. Lost the signal, Coon Hilly expected. Acquisition signal Diego Garcia.
Welcome back to the webcast for our 21st Starlink mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. So far, we had an on-time liftoff at 3:13 a.m. Eastern Time. Stage 1 came back to land on Just Read the Instructions. That is our 76th recovery of a booster. Now we're waiting on SES-2 coming up here, which is second engine start 2. And this will be a very short, quick burn, just about 1 second, but it will take us to our final drop-off orbit. And there you could see it was a very quick burn, but we did have SES-2 and SECO-2. We had a call out.
Nominal orbit insertion.
There we go. Call out for good burn and a call out for a good nominal insertion. Again, our Starlink sats will ultimately end up in a LEO, or low Earth orbit, around 550 kilometers above Earth's surface, which is different than your typical geostationary or GeoSat, which orbits roughly 36,000 kilometers above Earth. We have another 15-minute coast phase before we deploy our next batch of Starlink satellites into orbit. And during this time, the spacecraft will start to spin along its central axis, giving the Starlink satellites the momentum that they need to space themselves out over time after they deploy. While this happens, sit back and enjoy some more space jams. We'll see you back here at
Signal Diego Garcia expected.
We'll see you back here at T+1 hour and 4 minutes.
Acquisition of signal, Tasmania.
Welcome back to our webcast for Starlink. We had an on-time liftoff this morning. Our first stage booster landed for its 6th time and our 76th recovery overall. Stage 2 completed its 2 burns, and now we are coming up on the deployment of our Starlink satellites. We have a good, nice live view there on your screen, so we should see these deploy here shortly. We've got the sun beaming there in the background. Just about 10 seconds away from payload deploy.
Payload deployed.
Now you can see those Starlink satellites out in space drifting away from second stage. As a reminder, this is just their drop-off orbit. Shortly, they will deploy their solar array, and over the next few days and weeks, they will distance themselves from each other and use their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their operational orbit.
And that brings our webcast to a close. Thank you to the range and the FAA for supporting today's mission. If you're interested in Starlink service, head over to starlink.com and sign up. Thanks again for joining us, and have a good morning.